going on.
And there's Cookie barking good morning.
1 minute.
We don't bark to the neighbors. Come on, baby. There you go. Chow time, baby.
Good morning.
Good morning, Shep. Good to hear your voice, buddy boy.
Hey, I just woke up by a hair. I said, I got to get in
By
there.
a hair. By a hair, he made it with 30 seconds to go.
How you doing, Thomas?
Fantastic, over the top, couldn't be better. Now that I hear your voice, it's even better than that. And it's 10 o'clock. Good morning, everybody. I am now muting all the lines.
You are now muted.
So very, very good. So good morning to everybody. This is Thomas, and this is class number 4 of the Relationship Satisfaction series. And the title of this morning's class is called Thinking. Now, before I dive into the content of this morning, I want to address some confusion that I have caused. Now, I did address this in our course, in the live course, but for people on the webinar, I just want you to be aware of what's happening. So we have the Relationship Satisfaction series, which is happening right this minute. And also, every month, I do a complimentary conference call the third Thursday of every month. And you receive invitations to this call, and you also receive links to the recording of that call. And though the content can absolutely be connected, and the call can be used for coaching and interaction regarding your course, it is not the course. So I had a couple people who misinterpreted the recording, thinking that they had missed today's class. It just caused some confusion. So I want to address it now so that you guys know every month there is a free call. I'd love to have you on the call. Your interaction is very supportive. It makes the content of the call that much more alive, but it is not your course. I hope that takes care of that. In a little while, we'll be opening up the lines and you'll have an opportunity to talk about anything you want. Speaking of that, a little housekeeping. Everybody is on mute right now, so your background noise is not being heard. I will let you know when I'm opening the lines, and that'll give you an opportunity to share or talk about anything that you want during our discussion periods. And how you do that is you simply say your first name, and then I'll call on you. Okay, so having got all the housekeeping out of the way, good morning. It's awesome to be with you. The assignment from your last class, which I realize has only been a week ago, was to practice communicating at an equal level. In a little bit, I'm going to ask you with whom you tried doing that and what happened. With whom could you not do it? And what did you notice about yourself overall? I asked you to practice the 2-person awareness bubble. I'm interested to hear from you about that. And I've asked you to journal everything you noticed and bring it to the webinar where we're going to distinguish more in the arena of multiplicity. Somebody asked me, what is multiplicity? Multiplicity is the term that we use regarding personality parts. It's just simply called multiplicity. So let's take a look at respect messages. You and I are always interpreting our communication partners' communication messages in three ways. So imagine you are in a one-on-one conversation with another human being, and during that conversation, automatically, the machine that you are, the machine that they are, is interpreting the communication messages in three ways. One way is you might be interpreting that your partner feels one up on you, that is superior to you. Now let me be more clear about what this means. So in reality, when you practice, you get a real feel. If someone is one-upping you, what it means is they care more about their own current needs, their own opinions, and their own feelings more than yours right now. Now, this inherently feels disrespectful, and it can bring about a lot of fear with your inner family, you know, all your personality parts. So it can make a lot of chitter-chatter go on in your brain. Another possible interpretation is the person seems to feel one down, that is inferior to you. That means that they care more about your needs and your feelings than their own right now. And what this does, you guys, is it subtly invites discounting and disrespect. So just think for a moment. There are people in your life that naturally occur one down. And keep in mind what I mean by one down. It doesn't mean they're less than. It means that they think less about their own stuff than they do yours. Now, I know some of you are thinking right now, well, isn't that a good thing? Isn't it a good thing that you, let's say this is you with someone else, and you're making their feelings and thoughts more important than yours? You would think, well, this is a good thing. This is very generous. No, it actually isn't, because it invites disrespect and some discounting. It's just, if you can imagine one of those interactions that you've had in your own life where you're with, like I can think of a person in my life right now. It's somebody that I've worked with in the past. We don't work together now. And the way that this person would be with me is that they didn't care about themselves. And it was very uncomfortable. It was very uncomfortable having a relationship with that person because they, without even knowing it, were inviting disrespect. They were inviting disregard. They were inviting discounting. And I bet you if I could have gotten in their head, they may have even been using it as a strategy to get more important. But of course, that strategy is ineffective. One has to get equal. And equal merely says that you and I genuinely, authentically value our respective feelings, our worth, and our current needs. And when each communication partner, along with all of your dominant personality parts, consistently hold this attitude, then the communication exchange can be said to be mutually respectful, equal. And equal is best attained and maintained when both parties, get this, are interested in true capital S self-leadership. True self-leadership leaves one not interested in being right, at least not for the sake of being right. There's a calmness that naturally allows for being present, and then interest is easily generated in our current experience of one another. Now, I'm going to open the line because I want to hear a little bit from you with regard to your experience of the respect messages over the past week. For some of you, if you weren't on last week for whatever reason, this might be a new conversation for you, so you may have some questions, or you might see something right now that you want to put into a discussion.
You are now unmuted.
So the lines are unmuted, so please be aware of your own background noise, and just say your first name and I'll call on you, and let's create a little discussion around respect messages.
Joanne?
Yeah, Joanne.
I'm conscious of when there is respect and the listening was equal, that the conversations tend to have more of an opening, so to speak, more like if I didn't have this last week, but in my mind I have, like, if I'm not talking to a cop who's pulled me over, let's say, for something, he would, of course, be wrong if he pulled me over, but let's say he pulled me over, I would feel inferior and he would feel superior in the interaction. So I'd be very cryptic, just answer what I need to and want to move on. So there's like an unwillingness to even be present. So what I noticed is being conscious of equal, I really have to have a willingness to be present. So there are some conversations I really don't, somebody calls and I'm in the middle of something and it's like I really don't want to talk right now. So there's an unwillingness to be present, so there's an unwillingness to be equal because I'm just wanting to move on.
Yeah, very good. Excellent.
Yeah.
So let me say a couple things about that. So this is a really good scenario you bring up. If the police officer pulls you over, is he superior?
In my world, they've got a gun and they arrest me, and you know,
well,
I've never been arrested. I don't know why I even think about that, and I've never done anything to be arrested for. But I still feel that it's not an equal footing.
Right. So think about it this way: if you were reprimanding your children when they were actually children, would you be superior to them?
Gosh, I felt like I was sometimes. Like I had to be superior to be the leader and be the guidance. Exactamente.
So let's distinguish this so there's no confusion. The cop pulls you over, he is or she is superior in that interaction. So, you know, they have control, they have dominance over the situation. You're taking care of your children, you're superior. You have dominance over the situation. So these are not the same things. So, you know, I almost think that maybe in the future I'm going to change the one up and take the superior word out of it, because what we're talking about here, first of all, if I'm having an interaction with the police officer and he's giving me a ticket, chances are I'm not really reaching for equal. I'm not really practicing any authentic communication at that time. I'm actually going to receive the ticket and move on. Absolutely. not like I treat him any less than a human being. If I'm completely present, equal in that communication would merely mean honoring his position and being responsible for mine. That would be equal. It absolutely would, from my point of view. And then, in my experience, because I have been pulled over a few times, most police officers have treated me in an equal kind of way also. Like, they respected my position, and they gave me a ticket. Okay? So very good. I'm glad we got to bring that conversation up. Excellent. Thank you for doing that. And, one of the things I want to just press on is maybe all of you can see perhaps how in your general life you've been more interested in being right and looking good, etc., versus being present and developing true self-leadership. Listen, our culture drives up insecurities which lead us to live a protected existence. And that experience is one of separateness. So you and I, the fact that we're here, the fact that we're doing the work we're doing, we are interested in driving up oneness versus separateness. And we are of the belief that this is the access to a satisfied life. And in fact, a satisfied relationship. Anybody else with anything regarding respect messages? Thank you, Joanne. That made a big difference.
Well, I'd like to say one more thing. And your speaking reminded me of one time I ran into a cop at a Target. And there, the whole conversation was equal. And I asked him a question. We ended up talking for an hour. But because I wasn't in the context of being pulled over, it was equal.
Yeah. Yes. Very good. Excellent. Okay. Anybody else on respect messages? All right. I'm going to...
You are now muted.
You are now muted again. Bring your attention forward, okay? Be on the call. I know there's lots of other things probably going on around you, but this is your course. So bring yourself to it. Get as involved as you can, please. We talked last week, and your instruction was to practice being a two-person bubble, especially in important personal and business communication. This bubble has each person, A, with a stable two-person bubble, B, a genuine mutual respect attitude, and C, a wanting to fill each person's current communication and other needs equally. Wow. So we're embarking on the holidays, right? What a great time to be practicing respect messages and the two-person bubble. There's going to be a lot of opportunity for certain. Now, how do you recognize a two-person bubble versus a one-person bubble or a half bubble or a no bubble? Well, in a two-person bubble, you and I will spontaneously use the following words. We will use the word I, and we will use the word me, and my, and mine, and myself. We will use those words, which, by the way, typically would be a one-person bubble if I'm focused on myself. But in a two-person bubble, you're going to use those words, but as well, you're going to use you, your, yourself, us, we, and our equally. So the conversation is going to be very inclusive. There's going to be a lot of interest over there without disappearing anything over here. So A person who's in a two-person bubble will consistently encourage dialogue, two-way exchanges versus monologue. You know, there's times when you've been in conversation, and if you noticed yourself, a few minutes in, you'll realize, wow, I've said everything in this conversation. You know, it's more of a monologue. We've all done it. Or maybe there are people in your life who do that with you, and, you know, you can't wait to get away from them. But a two-person bubble encourages dialogue. And when you're in dialogue, you will rarely interrupt each other unless the other person happens to be falling into a monologue or rambling on. You might then interrupt. People in a two-person bubble will also check in often during the conversation to confirm their understanding and that they are comfortable with relaxed eye-to-eye contact. I remember years ago when I was being trained in reflective listening and being trained in eye-to-eye contact. You know, I don't know, maybe it's just my nature. I generally, when I learn something, can take it to an extreme. So as I was practicing, I'm telling you, I practically drilled into the other person's head with my eye contact, right? I wasn't yet comfortable with a relaxed eye-to-eye contact. So you might want to notice how you are about that and with whom you may practice it. There might be someone with whom you can say, you know, I want to practice my eye-to-eye contact to get it more relaxed. And that would be a very good practice to take on. One other thing about a two-person bubble is that there will be sincere questions about the other person's thoughts and feelings and needs. And real listening will be present. So when your true self, that is your true capital S self, is guiding, then mostly people experience this two-person bubble. And you'll enjoy it, and you'll initiate conversations, you'll feel well heard, you'll feel well respected and comfortable with some self-disclosure and intimacy as the relationship grows. So you guys, these two elements, the respect messages and the two-person bubble, are a very important part of our overall course, because noticing and discussing your awareness bubbles is part of the most powerful communication skills you can actually come up with. So skill number 1 is awareness, which is what we're completing today. And eventually we're going to talk about a skill called meta-talk, which is later in the course. And meta-talk is the opportunity to discuss with your communication partner how you communicate. Very, very powerful. So now, we're going to open up the line again, and let's see if there's anything coming up that we can have a discussion around before I move on to any new data.
You are now unmuted.
Okay, so I heard from Joanne about some equal respect. So let's hear now from anybody, and you can include two-person bubble. You know, your experience so far with the limited amount of time. I mean, the good news about having this a week later is it certainly reinforces what you need to be focused on, yeah? So let me hear from somebody.
Susie?
Just say your first name and I'll call on you.
Susie.
Yeah, Susie.
Hi. Hi, Thomas.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning. I guess my question is, we're doing the training, we've got the training, but say we're talking to somebody that doesn't have the training, doesn't have a clue about, the eye contact. Say they're looking all over the place, say they already feel inferior. How do you keep your focus and your calmness, do you just let the other person be, whatever is coming up for them?
Yes. Thank
Okay.
you. So this is a very good point, because you are in a training and you're developing something for yourself, and by all means you want to give it away as often as you can.
Right.
But we do not coach into no request. So
right. I don't want to down myself to be with them. I want to be myself.
Yeah.
I can see easily how a person could fall out of their oneness with themselves, the calmness, if the other person is all over the place.
Yeah, well, now when you say all over the place, for instance, so is there an individual that you have in mind that you had a conversation with that this happened?
My daughter-in-law.
Okay, so you're having a conversation with your daughter-in-law, and your experience is she won down herself. Yes, is that what you said?
I feel like she's one-upping me.
Okay, very good. So she occurs to be more interested in her own thoughts, her own feelings, and her own opinions right now more than yours.
Yes.
Got it. Okay, well, it does take something to be with someone that way. Now, let's just take a look at if you wanted to shift it to equal, what might be some way to do that without impeding on who she is and the way that she is. All right, guys, we can hear all the background noise. Just keep that in mind.
Yeah, I can hardly hear you. What way? I'm sorry, you're going to have to repeat that.
Okay. So with regard to your daughter-in-law, what is a way that you could maybe cause more equal without impeding on who she is and what she's trying to develop?
Okay, so this is where I get confused. If I'm just listening, then I have the experience of one downing myself.
In that case, I'm asking you, in that case, you feel that way, or are you talking in general?
Huh? What?
Okay, so we're talking about an interaction with you and your daughter-in-law.
Thomas, you're echoing really bad.
Okay, so somebody might have their computer speakers on. If you do, mute your phone or something.
Okay, now it's better.
Yeah, somebody had computer speakers going. Okay, so with your daughter-in-law, so what you said was, if I'm just listening, then I feel like I am already bringing myself down a notch.
Right.
Okay, and I said, is that just with her, or is that in general? If you're listening to someone and listening with all of you, do you always feel like that's a one downing yourself?
No.
It's that way with her?
Yes.
Okay, and now tell me a little bit about why that is.
Because I have the experience that it's all about her.
Yeah. But you're listening.
But when I'm talking, when I input with her, when I share with her, she's still not listening.
Gotcha. So do you have the kind of relationship where you can say, daughter-in-law, there's something I want to share with you, and I don't feel like that you're listening to me, are you? Do you have that kind of relationship or not?
I bet I could if I said that.
That might be a way to start. Without impeding on who she is, she may not even realize how she's being with you.
Right.
It may all be defensive. There may be a level over there with her where she actually regards you superior, and she's trying to balance it out somehow.
Yeah.
Especially if she comes from a shamed, SHAMED background. people who come from a shamed background have a very hard time not one-upping and one-downing. They have a very hard time, and that could be the case. So just something to be cautious of. But thank you, Susie, for jumping in.
You're welcome.
Anything else?
No, that's it. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Someone else?
Jennifer?
Yeah, Jennifer. Good morning.
Hi. Good morning. Mine's more of just an observation from the past week of when I'm at work, I work in a hospital, I work with a lot of families, and I really try to give them that two-person bubble communication, really making sure I understand what's going on with them, that when I leave their room and I'm interacting with coworkers, I can't find the time to give them the two-person bubble, or I realize I'm not giving them.
Right. Very good. So let's take a look at different kinds of environments. For instance, when you're in a hospital, everybody's dealing with getting people well, and everybody is mostly on task. So the two-person bubble may not exist the same way there as it would in a general, relaxed conversation with somebody you love or somebody you're in a relationship with. So how do we then honor those relationships the same as we honor our personal relationships, if you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Any idea?
No, it's a great question.
Okay, good. Well, I'm going to give you some ideas.
Okay.
But if you have something to say, please say it. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to step over you that way. Oh, hell no. Oh, hell no. Okay. So,
what the heck was that?
UFO.
Let's not even bring it to the forefront. It's gone now. So everybody, in the case, if let's say you were at war and you're on the battlefield, there are ways of being that are distinct for getting that job done that don't necessarily include a two-person bubble. But it could. The same as in the hospital. It could. Because one of the things that you said, Jennifer, that stood out to me was you don't really have the time. But what I'm going to suggest is what you don't have time for is stopping and chit-chatting and digging into what's going on for another person. But in reality, if you are, let's say you're really busy and they're really busy, which is what I'm understanding. Everybody's got their own things going on. In those cases, wouldn't a two-person bubble actually be honoring the busyness of each other? So I wouldn't want to impose. I wouldn't want to stop you. I wouldn't want to necessarily dig in. That would not be respectful. Being respectful really is allowing for the space necessary for us to get the job done.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a question. I think it does too. So here's what I want you to do. At work, I want you to start to notice, is this a level of respect that I hadn't realized was actual respect? We're actually respecting each other's space. We're respecting each other's duties. They have all these things going on in their head. I've got all these things going on in my head because we're in a hospital. There's a lot going on. And just notice if that's the case. And I'd be very interested to hear in our next class whatever comes up from that observation. Will you do that?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
All right, perfect. Thank you. Anybody else before I mute you?
Jean.
You are now muted.
Well, Gene, I heard you just as I muted, so you'll jump in on the next time around, okay? So we're going into our second communication skill. And this skill is called clear thinking. Excuse me. We're now moving from skill number 1, which is awareness, into skill number 2, clear thinking. But to discuss clear thinking, we first have to distinguish thinking. So the single most important step in our journey towards true self-leadership, which is the journey of our course, is to learn and practice disidentifying from your thinking mind. So I'm going to say that again. The single most important step in your journey towards true self-leadership is to learn to disidentify from your thinking mind. In other words, to distinguish who you are from all the parts, all those personality parts that are in communication and, in fact, running your life. So far, many of you who are in the course have had some huge openings, and you've been seeing your parts in action. Now, in a bit, we're going to discuss some of what you've seen, and we're going to continue a bit with what is thinking. Like, imagine, I think it was it was class number 2 when I had you consider parts in dialogue with parts, and to notice the dominating parts in communication with each other. The thinking mind is a very busy component of our consciousness. So what's it constantly doing? So imagine your parts are in communication with each other. This is what it looks like to think. Thinking or talking to myself is beyond talking to myself. It's parts talking with parts. And there's a constant labeling, judging, defining, conceptualizing, covering the world up with words, rather than allowing you to experience the world or reality directly through presence. So imagine, the world is happening, right? Reality is happening. Life is happening right now for every single one of us. Look around you. Life is happening. But then there's this filter between life happening and you're experiencing life happening. The thinking mind is a chatterbox of parts that are constantly making commentary on every little detail of our experience. It's robbing us of a still and receptive state of being that experiences life. And it doesn't just experience life, it has an open curiosity that makes the world a living reality that's miraculous and magnificent. Now, question, are we trying to remove our parts? No. They are critically important. The brain is working. The mind is doing its job. The labeling, the conceptualizing, the defining, the judging, the storytelling is its job. But as it is now, you, consider this, you are subject to the mind. Do you understand? You are looking up to the mind. This morning is about getting responsible. That is, able to respond. Not responsible like a burden, not responsible like guilt or blame or shame. You understand? Not that kind of responsibility. But responsible like realizing that you are not beneath your mind. You are not beneath your thoughts, your feelings, your emotions, and your circumstances, but you are, in fact, equal to and or superior to them all. And it's time for the king or queen to step up into his or her rightful place, to step up, if you will, to the throne where you belong. And before you can do that, you've got to really get that who you've been being in your life is that your thoughts, your feelings, your emotions, and your circumstances were superior to you. And how do you know that? You know that because on a regular basis, you give your power away. And what are you giving your power to? Your thoughts, your feelings, your emotions, and your circumstances.
You are now unmuted.
So we're going to move into clear thinking versus fuzzy thinking, but I want to reach out to you. I've got the lines open to open up a little bit of communication here, some dialogue, some discussion around this concept of being responsible for who you really are, for taking your rightful place. Now, the lines are open. You can talk about anything. Do you understand? So don't worry if the question's exactly right or if you're going to answer it exactly right. Don't care. Any dialogue, any interaction is sufficient. So who'd step up? Say your first
Gene.
name.
Robert.
Gene, there you are. And then we'll take Robert. So Gene, go ahead. Good morning,
well,
darling.
I had an experience last weekend with my ex-boyfriend, now still best friend, and I was feeling so interesting to be super aware, sensitive. I felt in a low place, and I felt like I was hormonal because I was crying. I was easily crying. It was easy for me to go to tears. And for the first time, actually the weekend before and also last weekend, I felt like my experience of him was he was being very arrogant. And I certainly was thinking about the respect messages and the two-person bubble, and I definitely felt inferior. So it's interesting, this concept of to be responsible, to be responding, to not be at the effect of my emotions and my feelings, because I really was.
Yes, of course.
Yeah, and I did feel like I gave my... Go ahead.
So let me just throw a couple things in. So first of all, everybody, don't forget that while you're in the course, you're going to be parts-minded. So, Gene, for you, it would be a part of me felt inferior. So when I was with my boyfriend, a part of me felt very sensitive. A part of me felt like he was being arrogant. A part of me feels like I'm at the effect of my feelings, my emotions. You get me?
Yes.
Do you get me? So if you, listen, if you guys can think and talk in parts, it reduces your reaction, because then you get aware of, well, that's just a part of me. It's not all of me. Seems like all of me because it's dominating right now, but it's not all of me. So that's one thing I just want to put in as a little reminder. The other thing I want to put in is there was a way you said it, and I loved it. You said something about not being at the effect. So you noticed you were being at the effect, and you didn't consider not being at the effect. So one of the things I want to put in here for everybody is, and this is a tough one, what I'm about to say, you don't have any choice about being at the effect of or not at the effect of your mind. Oh, boy. So on one hand, I'm telling you, you got to now be responsible, and now I'm telling you, you don't even have a choice about it. Now let me explain a little more so that the understanding opens up. The reason I'm saying this, by the way, first of all, is how many times in your life, Gene, have you tried not something, not to be at the effect of something, or tried to be present, tried to get yourself back? Everybody's done it, and it takes a lot of energy, and sometimes it feels like we win or take a little ground, but the truth of the matter is, there is a natural way for us to take the throne as king or queen and dominion over our minds. And the way that that's done is simply by more true self leadership. And as you all are beginning to see, as you've worked with parts, once a part gets identified and distinguished, it starts to step aside for true self. And the more true self leadership you have, the more natural it becomes to take dominion over your feelings, your thoughts, your emotions. And that does not mean trying to change them. Okay, so I'm digging a little deep here. Are you guys with me so far? Does somebody give me a yes or a no?
Yes.
Okay.
Good.
So now, whatever you resist persists. So if I try to change my feelings, try to change my thoughts, any of the trying to change is simply more resistance. We're together?
Yeah.
So, Gene, if I don't want you changing anything, if I don't want you resisting anything, then what would I be asking you to do? What would be my coaching to you when you are sitting face-to-face with John and this is your experience in the future?
Distinguish those parts. Distinguish the part that is seemingly in control.
All right. That might be one thing to keep in mind. Keep in mind, you're face-to-face. John's on one side, you're on the other. You're already in communication. Your feelings are already tapped into. I don't know. Listen, I honor it if you can, but I don't know if in that moment you're going to have the wherewithal or the time to say, okay, John, give me a minute. Let me see now. Which part? I don't think it's going to happen, right? And I'm not making fun by any means. I'm just trying to bring reality to it. But what you can do as a regular practice, everybody, what you can do is fully experience the experience. And the way to experience the experience is you allow the feelings to be, because they are, aren't they?
Yeah.
The feelings were there, right? The sensitivity was there. The tears were there. You know, the feelings were there. So you allow yourself to feel the feelings. You allow yourself to have the thoughts. What you don't do is give your power to those things. So I'll feel the feelings. I will think the thoughts, and I'll let them move on. How do I give my power to them? How you give your power to them is by chewing on them. Do you understand chewing on them?
Mm-hmm.
Has anybody ever had a thought and you chewed on it for a week, and every time you chewed on it, you had the same pain you had when you first had the thought?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So you and I have trained ourselves to perpetuate suffering. Well, now that's the thing that we're changing. Now we give ourselves the opportunity to experience fully whatever's happening, but we don't give ourselves the right to chew on it. because chewing on it is giving our power to that thought. Having the thought isn't giving power to the thought, because you are going to have thoughts, aren't you? You're alive. You're a human being. You will have thoughts. You know, I've heard it distinguished as, imagine it like a bus passing by. Every thought is a bus. You don't have to get on any of them. You just let the bus pass by, and then the next one will come, and you just keep letting them pass by. So give up chewing on the thoughts and feelings. That's one thing. And then the more you practice awareness, which we will do today, the more you practice awareness, the more dominion you will naturally have. So, Gene, can you hear that what I'm after here is a natural progression, not you working your ass off, but a natural progression of this is who I really am. I've just been living inside out. You and I have been living like our thoughts, feelings, and emotions and circumstances has dominion over us, when in fact we have dominion, because there's one choice you can make, and one choice only. And that choice is, do I get on the bus or not? Does this communicate?
It does,
and with the bus?
No. I get it conceptually, but I also, realize for myself that it's been, 56 years of doing this. So it's almost like I think of somebody wearing a rubber band. Okay, I got to have some way to remind myself, like you say, a practice, and I don't see in the moment, I don't see, in the heat of the feelings and the thinking and all of that, in the moment of the conversation.
Well, for you, the stop practice before any conversation is going to be critical.
Okay.
So you're going to put in the stop practice before you ever sit down and talk to anybody. And I'm going to recommend this to everybody, but the rest of the group won't get the stop practice until our next class. But you have it already, because you and I have practiced it together. So that would be the thing I would put in for you. Because the more present you are, Gene, you personally, the more present you are, boom, there's an immediate shift. So you've taken so much ground. You are not bound to any of this. This moves quite easily for you. It just happens to be a little less easy because there's some emotional attachment to John, and you all have history, and you all are broken up and you're creating a friendship. So there's a lot of dynamics going on there that makes it a little tougher than your everyday Joe. Agreed?
Yeah. Yes.
Very good. Thanks, Gene. Thank you so much for stepping in, okay?
Sure, thank you.
Anybody else? Yeah. Oh, Robert. Sorry, Robert.
Oh, yeah. Can you hear me? That's all right.
I can hear you perfectly. Good morning.
Hey, Thomas and everyone. Well, as you were speaking, what I thought was it's having a two-person bubble with myself and my mind.
Beautiful.
So I never looked at it like that, but I could have it could be like an equal, I could just that could actually be a communication instead of a war.
That's beautiful. Really, Robert, that's brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Love that.
I like that. It was great.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for putting that in, really. Awesome.
You are now muted.
I hope I didn't cut anybody off because you're now muted. So now we're going to move into clear thinking versus fuzzy thinking. So what we've got so far is we all have an idea of what I mean by thinking. This is all your parts talking to each other. It's all the stuff going on in your head. It's the evaluations, judgments, stories, etc. Now notice, do you think more clearly or better sometimes than you do other times? And do you know people who seem to think more clearly than other people? So, like I said before, thinking in one way can be defined as the voices of your personality going on. And those personalities might communicate effectively or fuzzily. So one of the 7 skills is clear thinking. And in order to have clear thinking, awareness must already be there. And you and I have been working on awareness for the first 3 classes. And one of the things I want to say about clear thinking is that this skill uses the communication awareness skill and knowledge to build your vocabulary over time. So what do I mean by building your vocabulary? Do I mean learning new words? Maybe, but really this is about a new discipline to intentionally avoid A, vague, ambivalent words and phrases, and B, hand grenade words, which are emotionally charged words, that raises your communication partner's emotion levels. And then it's going to hinder any accurate hearing. So you're most apt to think clearly when your capital S self is leading you along with all your personality parts. So what are some common vague terms? Now, everybody bring your attention back. I know this might have lost you for a second, but come on back, because this is very important, and I want you to notice how you communicate with people you love. We use a lot of vague, ambivalent words, you guys, because we're trying to protect ourselves. Part of our culture has driven us into a protective way of being. So therefore, we're not as authentic as we could be. We don't have as much true self-leadership as what's available because of our conditioning that you and I are going to naturally shift. So some common vague terms are it, that, them, they, those people, sometimes, sort of, always, never, the problem, the issue, deal with, cope with, get over, upset, soon, this, stressed out, work through, and there's many more, but those are a few. And I want to pull a couple of them out and work on them with you and tease them a little bit, okay? So imagine you with a primary communication partner. So for some of you, it might be a husband, a wife, boyfriend, girlfriend, partner. It could be a sibling, a child, a parent. It might be a significant coworker or friend. But think of one and a time when that person said to you, you always X, Y, Z. How does that make you feel? You always do that to me. Or, you never show me any appreciation. You never X, Y, Z. Why is that a vague, ambivalent term? Because nobody always does anything. And nobody never does anything. And when those words are used, it leaves the other person, whoever you're communicating with, it leaves them with the experience of not being heard, not being understood, and by all means, you, if you're doing this, are one-upping them. I know I've started this conversation with somebody doing it to you, so they are one-upping you. I'm sure that communicates. And if it doesn't, we'll be able to put something in a moment. So that one is a very clear one. And then we have, if a question is asked and the response is, well, sort of, with no other explanation, that's vague. Or if we say, well, we have a problem, and if we don't fix this problem, we can't move forward. All right, very good, but that's very vague. What is the problem? A really good source of training on this is with Judge Judy. Because, on Judge Judy, she's very interested in getting people to talk specifically. You say what the problem is. You say what exactly you're talking about. You refer, and then there was another one that I like very much. You've made a promise, let's say. I promise to do the laundry. And then you don't do it. But what you say is, it didn't happen. So I'll say, did you do the laundry today? You said you were going to do the laundry. No, it didn't happen. I said I was going to do it, but it didn't happen. So the it didn't happen makes it an ambivalent term versus I said I would do it and I didn't do it. And now you are, you're on the hook for if you're going to do it or not and when you might do it. All right, so those are common vague terms. Now I'm going to move into popular hand grenade terms. So bring your attention back. These are very important for clear thinking. These are very important in communicating effectively with people that you love. Some popular hand grenade terms are abuse, addiction, bigot, failure, whip, coward, weakling, childish, stupid, loser, pathetic, bully, selfish, illogical, insensitive, narcissistic, moron, self-centered, psycho, and of course, various racial and ethnic slurs would be included in popular hand grenades. So imagine in your couple or in a primary relationship where your emotion levels run high. That is, you are emotional. And how easy or not it is for you to grab hand grenade terms and the damage that does in a relationship. So consciously stay focused. I want you to start minimizing your distortions and distractions and checking for meanings and starting to use very specific words and taking out vagueness and ambiguous terms. So how often do you think in a day? It's an amazing inner process that includes all your personality parts, and it can range from crystal clear to fuzzy, even muddled and crazy. So imagine, I'm kind of jumping ahead of something here, and I just want to make sure that I put the two together. When we were talking about the vague terms and the hand grenade terms, that was one conversation, and now we're moving into considering thinking as a developed skill. So what kind of thinking is it going to take to use vocabulary that's succinct and to take out vague terms and to take out hand grenades? See, it's going to take a particular kind of development. And as you and I build our inner and outer awareness, we can intentionally improve the clarity of our communications by improving the clarity of our thinking, especially in key situations. How? Well, by correcting misconceptions and assumptions. If I'm not using vague terms, there's a lot less opportunity for a misperception or an assumption because I'm going to be clear about what I'm saying. Noting, defocusing, and then refocusing. You notice, like, we're on this call, and every now and then I call you back, because one thing I know about being human, especially on a phone call, is how easy it is to defocus, to get distracted. So I'm asking you right now to bring yourself back. You could actually do that in a conversation without making anybody wrong, because you're talking to your own personality parts. It's like, oh, bring myself back. Notice your parts speaking and engaging. Replace vague and ambivalent pronouns and phrases with more specific, descriptive terms. Avoid hand grenades, emotionally charged words and phrases, and intentionally build your vocabulary so that you can help express yourself more accurately. Now, I've said a lot of stuff, and I need to check in with you and give you an opportunity to tease some of this out with me.
You are now unmuted.
So we're unmuted, and anything up until now, okay? So we're not going to be specific. Anything up until now that's there for you to discuss, ask, or tease out, please bring it to the forefront. Just say your first name.
Tanya.
Yes, Tanya. Good morning, darling.
Good morning. So I wasn't really sure how to not chew on the thoughts. Like, I felt like that kind of went by a little fast.
Okay, gotcha. All right. So let's take an incident, something real. So take a look in this past week, an incident where there were thoughts and feelings and you notice yourself chewing on them. And tell me about it.
Okay, so Jason and I had like an exchange in the car last night where he felt like I was short with him, and then his emotions kind of escalated because we were stressed out about traffic and directions.
Yeah.
And I couldn't sleep. Like, it was really difficult, and I kept thinking about, like what had happened, and my son had been in the car, and it felt really bad.
Okay. So you said something, and then Jason made you aware that his experience was you were short with him.
Correct.
And how did he make you aware that his experience was you were short with him? What did he say?
He kind of started yelling and driving erratically and saying that, he didn't know where he was going and I was in charge of it, and like, did he have to turn here? Did he have to turn here? And it was just unpleasant.
So there was a button that got pushed, but it sounds to me like it happened before the moment of you being short with him.
Right.
So what built up? See, what I'm hearing, let me just tell you something that I'm hearing, and for everybody's sake, we're not going to go through the whole dialogue necessarily.
Yeah.
But just with this little bit, one of the things I can see, because of the habit of chewing on thought, makes it sound like that you guys don't get things completely complete.
Correct.
So therefore, it still lives. So this is for everybody on the call, in order to live in a satisfying relationship, one practice that you must take on is getting completely complete with whatever's happening. So there's something happened, I assert, something happened before the moment of yelling and driving erratically. There was something either before you got in the car, something left over from the morning of, or something happened in the car and it wasn't acknowledged. Which is the case that you can see authentically, Tanya?
I think it was something left over from earlier.
Okay. So let's move to that space if you can. So let's go to the earlier space, and if you'll tell me what happened.
well, it was, I honestly, I feel like there were several. I don't even know which one to pick.
Okay, gotcha. So here's your practice. Okay, there's noise in the background, guys. Somebody's scratching something around. I know you don't hear it, but we do. Here's your practice, Tanya.
Mm-hmm.
I want you to start focusing on bringing things completely complete. Now, you and I might have to talk one-on-one just a bit to determine how you're going to put that practice in, because you're going to put this in the middle of your game. You understand? So if your marriage is your game, the game is already going on, and now I'm giving you a new play that you're going to throw into the middle of the game. So it's going to throw things off a little bit, and you're going to have to learn to be very steady as you take on the new play, getting completely complete. Well, what is completely complete? Well, if you'll just think with me, you don't have to answer any of these questions. They're rhetorical. But I bet you if you took a look, you would see vague words in your communication. I bet you would see things that were a little ambivalent, that weren't clear. Often when people want to say, you don't do this correctly, many times they'll say, and they do it with me on the phone, so I know in my coaching couples, they'll say, well, we don't do it correctly. See, they include the both of them, and that sounds like it's a nice thing to do. But if authentically you want to say you don't do it, but what you're really saying is we don't do it, then the communication never really gets delivered, and you can never actually get it completely complete. So I'm asserting there's vagueness, ambivalence, and then that leads to some hand grenades. And I bet you that probably Jason dropped a few of those when he was yelling and driving erratically with your kid in the car. True or false?
True.
Okay, very good. So after we finish today's call, I've got a number of calls this afternoon, but just check in with me so that you and I can have 20 minutes, and I'll help you put this in place, okay?
Thank you.
You're welcome. Anything else for now?
No.
Thank you, dear.
Joanne?
Okay. Yeah, Joanne.
When you went through and broke down the vague terminology and the hand grenade terms, what I realized is sometimes I deliberately pick a hand grenade term to thinking that it's needed to make my point.
Yes.
Like I know I'm throwing that hand grenade in the water. I know it's going to kill the fish, but I don't care because I'm not feeling heard or whatever. And so when I just becoming conscious of it opened this huge door, like, oh my gosh, I could just say, like I have an expression I use with one of my daughters, like I point my two fingers at her eyes and then at my eyes, like look at me, because we'll say something and we will not have actually heard each other.
Sure.
And we assume that the other one heard each other. So if I have to say something that's really impactful, like we have to be somewhere at 3 o'clock, I'll make sure I have eye contact when I say the point.
Mm-hmm.
But being conscious of not using hand grenades, it's almost like a slimy way to communicate, as you brought it up. I was really feeling like I just don't want to participate in that.
Right. Yeah. And sometimes we'll use a hand grenade directed at someone else in front of somebody because we want them to get it, but we're trying to lessen the impact of it. It's just slimy all the way around. It's not direct. It's not clean. Yeah, very good. Thank you, Joanne. Anybody else?
Rachel?
Yes. Yes, Rachel, darling. Good morning.
Good morning. I guess my question goes back to when you were saying if you're in some sort of family situation where the person is dropping these grenades like either like these words that are making you feel bad, and that is making me feel bad, so I stopped doing productive things to get my life back on track, and I was just wondering how to like fight against that, or just I'm not in a position where I can stay away from this person. My living situation is with them right now, and I would,
Well, for you, Rachel, like I know, I know your family situation, and I know what happens there, and I have a lot of compassion for what you have to deal with. So I do want to say that, and then at the same time, I want to say this is now your opportunity to step up, and this term that you said, they use words that make me feel bad. I want you now to be responsible for you giving your power to your feelings. Do you understand?
I think so.
Listen, I can say words, and those words you could interpret and make you feel bad. But who's making you feel bad? Is it the words? Is it me? Or is it you?
I guess it would be my the way I'm taking the thoughts. My thoughts are doing it.
Yeah. So your thoughts is that me, the words, or you?
Me.
It's you. Yeah. And listen, for some people you might be thinking, well, it's her interpretation of the words. Not necessarily, because the words are probably intended just the way she's getting them. They're hand grenades. They've been used for years, and the person using them knows how to use them and will continue to use them. And then you receive them, and you say to yourself, those words make me feel bad. And then you honor that statement by feeling bad. Are you with me so far, Rachel?
Yes.
Listen, I know this is a giant step I'm asking you to take. I know that. But if I don't ask you to take this giant step, who will? Nobody. So the giant step is this. You no longer give yourself the right to make you feel bad. You're going to start saying to yourself, words are words. And then you keep being productive, because that is your access to freedom. When you're productive, that's when you have satisfaction and happiness. When you're not productive, and I do mean this personally, when Rachel's productive, Rachel feels satisfaction, doesn't she?
Yes.
When she's not productive, then she starts feeling less than, inferior. Everything starts going downhill for her. So what we want, you and I, is we want you to be productive, productive, productive. And that means the words just have to be words. You can no longer allow those to be the excuse to hammer yourself down. With me? Talk to me. I know I'm being just a little bit aggressive with you. Go ahead.
Well, the thought comes up, well, what about when I'm saying the words to myself? That person isn't even saying those words, but I just get to this point where this feeling comes over me, and I have these negative thoughts, and I isolate from everyone, and I don't know if that's a separate question. It's coming from internally. The things that I've been.
Got it. Now you're going to start distinguishing. There's a part talking to you versus I'm talking to myself. There's a part talking to me, and it doesn't talk nice to me. And I don't have to interpret those words to take me out of being productive, because it's just a part of me. Because, see, there's a part of you that does that, while another part of you is very productive. I've had communications with you where you've been very productive. So I know you're a highly productive person until that part talks you down.
Mm-hmm.
So now we no longer give it the right. It can say whatever it wants to say, but you understand, even though those words are being said and they're happening inside your own head, you, who you really are, has dominion over those parts. You, who you really are, has dominion over those thoughts and feelings. You have dominion. So you let the words be. I'm not asking you to try to stop them, because resistance causes persistence. So if you try to push away or make them stop, you're just giving them more energy. No, just let them be. Let them be. And remember, I talked earlier about getting on the bus? Treat it like a bus. There's thoughts going by and words. It just goes by. You know what? If you've ever stood at a bus stop and watched the bus go by that's not your bus, when it's gone, you're not even thinking about it anymore. And the next one comes, and it goes. I want you to start treating your thoughts and words that way, okay?
Okay.
All right, very good, very, very good. Thank you for stepping in and sharing. Great work. I appreciate you. I appreciate everybody who stepped up. Well, I appreciate everybody who's on the call, and I appreciate the ones who stepped up for keeping the conversation going. I'm going to mute.
You are now muted.
So now we're still looking at clear thinking, fuzzy thinking, effective thinking, ineffective thinking. So recall that effective thinking makes accurate sense out of what's going on inside and outside. So if I'm trying to distinguish events occurring, then effective thinking helps me to make sense out of something. It also defines and prioritizes current primary needs. So in a few moments, we're going to talk just a little bit about needs. Let me just see. Let me look at my notes here for a second, guys. So on the screen, you'll see effective thinking, accessing clarity, radical awakening. When you and I are identified with our parts, the thinking mind versus our true self, then our experience of life gets constricted and limited to an opaque screen of words, images, concepts, and labels. It's like a second-hand representation of life that might as well be a movie on a screen. We think we're dealing with reality, when in fact it is a muted or skewed view of a version of reality. So effective thinking, or, let's just look at the purpose of thinking is to make sense, right? So just like I said before, it's to make sense. And your thinking and feeling automatically builds a huge database, a memory about all your inner and outer things and everything that's been experienced. So just like my interaction with Rachel and my interaction with Tanya, there is a data bank over there with each of you that has stored memories about words, feelings, and thoughts that have been processed throughout your life that have been given power. So a lot of the work you're doing right now is taking your power back. And it gets a little confusing sometimes. So I want to acknowledge that, and I want to acknowledge that I know that. And you're not off the hook for it. Because I'm still committed that your life be beyond extraordinary, and this is the access to have that happen. So what's critically important to understand is that your mind that makes sense out of stuff happening is important. It's actually important. We don't want it to go away. We just want dominion over it. So it's critically important that we have these long-term databases and processing centers the brain and the mind to exist on this planet. But in order to have the life that you want and love, you being on the throne, having dominion over the mind, is what's next. And it's what's important. You are the boss. You are the queen of the kingdom. You are the king of the kingdom. Being awake is your access to this. So, in order to get extraordinarily clear, you want to be able to distinguish surface needs from primary needs. Now, this is going to be the last nugget to put in, and we're going to resume this particular part on our next class because I want you to really get surface needs versus primary needs. Understanding yours and your communication partner's primary needs makes being present with them not only appealing, but critical to who you really are. So you see on the screen a number of primary needs. These are the real needs, the underlying causes of what more obvious needs might be. Let's just take a look at them. We all need recognition. We need appreciation. We need understanding. Not just from the outside, you understand, but from the inside. So, Rachel, you want to activate those parts of you that can appreciate you and understand you, because you have parts already that, do the opposite. Another need is belonging, connection, inclusion, independence, autonomy, creativity, purpose, meaning, contribution, stability, order, predictability, equality, mutuality, respect, support, reassurance, and trust. Those are just a handful of our primary needs. We might say, I need you to listen to me. And you could say, well, that's a primary need. No. What do I get if you listen to me? See, if you listen to me, authentically listen to me, it fulfills a primary need called respect. That's a primary need. Your listening to me is not the need. Your listening to me is the access to the need being fulfilled, which is respect. You follow? So doing things on your own, being independent as an adult person, you might say, I need to be on my own. That's one thought. But what it really fulfills is a need for independence. So even being on your own may not even be the real answer. Doing things on your own might be the real answer. But the idea here is to start listening for what you really need. And then start practicing, what does my communication partner really need? So when you were in communication with Gene, so you and John were in communication and he said whatever he said, it might serve you if you were able to drill quickly, not out loud, but quickly into what's his primary need. Why would someone occur arrogant? What is there over there missing that needs to be fulfilled? In a relationship, there's a need for intimacy. There's also a need for sexual gratification for those people who are sexual, and satisfaction. A need to be honored and understood and even accepted by our partners. These are all important aspects of who we are. Each of us has our own way in which these needs must be met in order to feel happy and secure. Now, what we're going to do now, you guys, is I'm skipping over, let's see, the next few slides because it's going to take too much time and I think it's too much to put in, is what I'm present to now. So what I'd like to do is have everybody just get extremely relaxed. just sit back and relax, and I'm going to lead you through the radical awakening conversation, just so that when we hang up, you have the experience of being extraordinarily present for at least the rest of the day. And for some of you, it could linger over for a couple days. So we're going to become aware of what is real here. What can be experienced in this very moment. So I want you to notice sound. Everybody can hear the sound of my voice. If you've drifted away, please come back. This exercise is very important for us to complete today's webinar. So you hear the sound of my voice, and in a moment, I'm going to stop talking, and I'd like for you to get present to sounds happening around you. Now, as you notice the sounds, drop the labels. Drop the words that explain the sounds and just hear. Very good. And I'm going to ask you a series of questions. They are rhetorical. Does it require any effort or decision on your part to hear sounds that are already there? And when you drop the labels and the words that describe and all you do is hear, does it require any thought to hear sounds? Does it require any thought to hear sounds that are already there? And now check into your own subjective experience. Is there any time delay between the sounds arising and you actually hearing the sounds? Very good. Thank you. Would it be true to say then that hearing is happening? Hearing itself is thoughtless, timeless, and effortless. So I'm asking you right now, each and every one of you, please, is it okay to rest in being that which is hearing sound right now? Is it okay to relax into being that which is hearing in this moment? Allow yourself to rest in and relax in being that. If your eyes are closed, please gently open your eyes and just notice what is before you. Notice shapes, color, and movement. And if you drop the labels and the words that describe and you just allow yourself to experience seeing, does it require any effort or decision on your part to see what's already before you? And just like hearing, is there any time delay between that movement, shape, or color that's right there in front of your eyes showing up and you actually seeing it in your subjective experience? And doesn't it really require any thought to see that which is already there, already in front of your eyes? If you drop the labels, drop the words that describe, and all that's happening is seeing, it takes no thought. So would it be true to say then that just like hearing, seeing is happening? And seeing itself is thoughtless, timeless, and effortless. So I'm going to ask you, please, is it okay to rest in being that which is seeing? Is it okay to relax and rest in being that which is seeing right now in this moment. Thank you. Allow yourself to relax into being this, which you already are right now. And finally, do you notice any physical sensations in your body? Your back against the chair, your feet against the floor. Do you notice any tension or discomfort? Just notice feeling physical sensations in your body. Do you need to make any effort or decision to feel a sensation that's already there? Does it require any thought to feel the sensations in the body that are already there? And just like hearing and seeing, can you notice that in your subjective experience, there doesn't seem to be any time delay? So I think you could agree that it would be true to say that feeling of sensations, just like hearing and seeing, is timeless, effortless, and thoughtless. So relax into being that, will you? Can you relax into being that which is feeling right now? Thank you. And now this series of questions will require you to look a little deeper within. It is rhetorical, but be with the questions authentically. Who or what is experiencing this very moment? Who or what is experiencing seeing, hearing, and feeling right now? And if it is I am, who or what is the I in the I am? And who or what is experiencing the I that you referred to? Very good. Different people have different ways of acknowledging this particular space. I would ask you to notice if it seems this particular thing that is experiencing the I am and that's experiencing the seeing, the thinking, the seeing, the feeling, and the hearing, if it has any edges or boundaries to it, any beginning or end.
You are now unmuted.
For some, they call this space awareness. Some call it consciousness. Some call it God. Whatever it is for you, in this moment, capture that and be that, the presence that is yours. And I'd just like to check in with you as we complete our call. What are you present to, and what would you like to share to complete the call before I give you your assignment? Just say your first name, and I'll call on you.
Deborah.
Deborah!
Hey, Thomas.
Good morning.
This was an amazing call for me in many ways. The big one is the distinctions of the clarity of thinking.
Mm-hmm.
And how the fuzzy in language, it kind of makes me go, I go unconscious sometimes when other use those fuzziness, and perhaps me, and I use them. Anyway, it's a great call.
Thank you, Deborah, and thank you for being on the call.
Sure.
Somebody else? Anything to complete the call?
Jean.
Yes, Jean.
I just so appreciate you and everyone on the call for this incredible contribution of looking at myself, looking at others in such a different way. I just really appreciate it.
Very good, and I appreciate you too. Thank you. So the assignment is on the screen, but the first one, the 5 questions, eliminate that because we didn't do that, and we're not going to do that today. I'm going to move it to the next class. So with the 3 most important people you communicate with regularly, measure for respect equal. Okay, so with the 3 most important people you communicate with, you should take a moment and think about who they are, and you should take a moment and write them down and start measuring for equal respect. Practice clear thinking and bring a list of all the parts you've identified to the next class. So the next class we're going to do a lot of parts work, so bring all the parts you've identified to the next class. Now, one more thing before we go. Last week I had you also practice the 2-person bubble. You might as well go ahead and keep that in existence, okay? So I won't, I won't be with you again until after Thanksgiving. So happy Thanksgiving, everyone. Thank you very much for being on the call, on the webinar. Thank you for being a part of the course. Next month, on December 17th, not to create confusion, just so that you know, is my next complimentary monthly conference call. It is not a part of this course, okay? But you're all welcome to be there, and it's a great place to invite people to participate that you might want to share some of this work with, but you don't really have a way of sharing with them. They can hop on the call and just be a part of the call, and they don't even have to open their mouth if they don't want to. So anyway, I love you, respect you, honor you, appreciate you. Have an extraordinary rest of the weekend. Until our next class, good day.
Bye,
Hey, Thomas.
Thanks, Thomas.
Bye.
Hey, Thomas.
Bye. Yes, sir. Is that Chef?
Hey, Thomas. Chef, I was just wondering, is this recorded, this one?
Yes, it is.